Anyway,
What's happening? It's very
hi
meta.
everyone if you're watching the live feed.
Yes, hi.
Oh, and
Welcome
I'm pinning
officially.
I'm
We're
pinning
on
us
the
to.
fourth day into our 8-day mini writing course, which is how to find and write your story that you're most hungry for. Our aim, as all of you know that have been here, is to help you get ready to get ready by thinking about all these things ahead of time that I just want to reiterate are not the law. And you don't have to know the answers to all of these in order to write, so don't set that sort of thing up in your head. Not at all. It's just more of sometimes it helps to think about them a little bit ahead of time so you don't back yourself into a corner. So you realize, even it's okay to keep it loose, but it's particularly like the topic today, which the topic today is should I write a series, or is this a one-off story? And the answer could be both. Um, also, but it's like, we're just having a conversation so you can put some thoughts in your head in that regard, because there is different things to think about when you're doing one or the other. And one of the things you want to think about is really that if you are writing a series, there's stuff you want to set up. There's a lot more setup. There's a lot more front end sort of work, I would say, that I could argue maybe you should do anyway for a one-off, and we'll get into the details and you'll see what I mean. But typically my when you're contemplating whether it's going to be, a series of stories, either, in novel form where it's a whole bunch of stories with the same characters, or whether it's like literally a series for a TV show or something like that. Um, I usually the rule of thumb I think about is you think about the story idea that you have right now that you're working on, and just start to think, is is what I'm trying to tell, is the story the most important thing? Does it have a clear beginning, middle, and end, and it's the story itself, this thing that happened? Is that the most important thing? Or is what's most important is really the characters and the character's journey? Because sometimes if what's most important, and not all the time, but sometimes, but if the characters are the most important thing about it, that the journey of them, then you simply can do more with the series. Like you have time to dive into the minutia, and really let these characters grow. You don't have to, whereas with especially like with a movie, with a screenplay, and even a novel too, it's relatively short. You got to pack it all in there. You really got to pack it in. And you see in reverse the problem when they take a novel and they try to pack it into one movie, and you're like, "Mm."
They ruined it.
They ruined it. They skipped all this. And that was because they had no business. I remember seeing um, Atlas Shrugged, they tried to pack into, and to be fair, they even packed it into three movies, but I'm like, no, I'm sorry. This could be like an eight season show. Like there's too much in there. Like if you really want to get into all the romances and all the, I mean, there's all this drama, that you got to earn. Frankly, sometimes that's the case with stories. You got to earn it. You have to let your audience observe these characters for a while in their natural behavior to even get the payoff and understand, what's happened. And you can't do that if you're racing. I see it all the time in movies lately. They erase. I'm like, I am sorry, you have not earned that moment with me. I don't buy. I want to, but I don't buy it because you didn't lay the groundwork. And to be fair, they didn't have enough room to do that groundwork. But and so typically it is sometimes, like I said, there's a story with a clear beginning, middle, and end, and and that's a one-off. It's great. There's no, that doesn't make it less important than a series. It's just really more how is your story fitting? Are you going to do it justice? Which way? And then also, again, marketing wise, there's cases to be made for especially new um, like writers. I know like me, I love to read novels. That's my little thing on the side. I love to read like romance novels, and I like nothing better than when I find a writer that has tons of series because I'm all because I already know I like it, and then there's a bunch more, and I like the characters that they had established and all that, so it's just from a viewer's perspective. Also, Diego and I, my husband, it's so hard to find a series we both will watch together that we both like, that, or anything to watch together that we both like, that when it is a series and it could go on for ages, we're like, oh, we've hit the mother load. So, but I still say do it, do what you want for you and what serves your story, but those are other thoughts to think about as well. Kelly, do you have some thoughts
Um,
on
I
that?
was just thinking about uh, when we're talking series and or series of novels, it's because we fall in love with the world that they've
Hmm.
created and we just want to inhabit that world forever.
Hmm.
Like Ted Lasso, like I'm rewatching Ted Lasso because I must live in that world right now again. And I know all the plot points, but now I'm like really watching the character. It's wonderful. Um, and really from kind of my personal story perspective, it's not as easy to talk about. We could talk about, I mean, like one thing that I deal with often is people coming to me. This is just an aside for anyone who ever wants to just know the background of this kind of stuff, who want to do a biopic on my dad. And so I get a lot of people who come with films to do that. And that can't be cradle to grave with a film. It has
Hmm.
to be, you watch the new Dylan movie, it's a moment when he turned electric, right? Like that was the big turning point. So they do turning point stuff. Some guys just came to me recently with a series idea, so it can be more cradle to grave because my dad's
Hmm.
arc is interesting that way, and that's why we did a 4 hour had to do a 4 hour documentary in order to cover all of that. So I just wanted to put that aside. Um, for me, I cut my teeth on doing storytelling, doing one-off stories. I cut my teeth on writing about my life in a format where I could then go as a performer and go to the local storytelling in LA and New York and lots of cities where it's like a salon kind of a thing, and but it's an audience and all of that. So I cut my teeth on the 6 to 8 minute story about my life. And, it can be anything. It could be one event, like my one night stand with Leif Garrett in Farrah Fawcett and Ryan O'Neal's bed. It could be that story, or it could be the story of Hawaii and what Hawaii means to my family, and how we had multiple Christmases there, and how I had a relationship with the numinous through that, and a healing with my dad because of that. So, so they can be thematic or they can be one event, and it can be a great place to start your writing. And when I do solo show guidance, and how I learned to do solo show was by doing that. The beat sheet we're about to create over the weekend that we're doing the 19th through the 21st is a great way to do 10 one-off stories.
Hmm.
You could just do 10 one-off stories. That's how my solo show started, was I had enough stories about my life that I could then string them together and find the theme, the overall theme. It did help me find the theme. And then we constructed a kind of a device about it using my dad's career mirroring mine, and all that kind of stuff. And then when I had went to the memoir, I had about two-thirds of it written because the solo show covered those events. And then I had to fill in some things because the
Hmm.
memoir gives you even more space to do it.
Yep.
So, and this is why people blog also. Blogging is a way of doing these smaller chunks of personal storytelling and personal writing. If you don't want to perform, you can just write and blog. Substack is a great place for that, or your own website blog, whatever you do. So there, and it's good to do that. I think as a personal storyteller in a memoir, I think one-off stories, or at least getting them, they don't have to have perfect beginning, middle, and end. If you're going to perform them or you're going to publish them as
Hmm.
one-offs, it's important to have that. But just to start to write these chunks will be how you write your memoir anyway.
Yeah, but it helps trick the brain, and anything you can do to, I
Helps
love
trick
that
the
you brought
brain
it up.
because you're
Yeah.
only doing I'm just telling the
It's a
story
short
of the
story.
time
Yeah.
I fell off the swing or whatever it is, and why it meant so much to me. And it's fun doing that beat sheet is fun because they are the things that end up having to be in it
Hmm.
in order to make the theme, the point of your story, find its point and make its point ultimately, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I love all those points, and I'm adding it back over to the fiction side with a novel because some of the people that I have worked with, they're like, I think I just do better with, a series of short stories. And I'm like, that's still a novel, right? And it's perfect because whatever you need to do, sometimes to bite it down into chunks, because that's part of the problem sometimes with a novel or a screenplay. It's like, oh my God, that's a marathon. It feels like impossible. And if you do think of it, like Kelly said, as a series of short things. And also, I thought with memoir too, Kelly, it's like some people are going to, like you said, they're 40 and they write the memoir. Well, obviously life is not over, so they might be writing several
oh yeah, that was going to be my other point too.
memoirs.
I decided in a Carlin Home Companion because it was about my childhood and how it shaped me, and then my adulting and how it shaped my adulting. I needed to, and it was about my family. I needed to start with my parents meeting, and then it ended at my dad's death because both my parents were gone then. Other people write memoir, and it's a much narrower time frame. I think of Cheryl Strayed and hiking the trail after her mother died of breast cancer. I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember the name of it right now. That's about grief and how she handled that huge transition in her life. Wild. Thank you,
Oh,
Kara.
yeah.
Um, the other one, I'm Mary Carr and her drinking memoir, and she's had a few of them, but they're very much consolidated into a certain time. Elizabeth Gilbert, Eat, Pray, Love. She found a great device to talk about these three kind of big things, but
Mm-hmm.
they were all about finding herself after marriage and finding herself in relationship, right? It was about
Hmm.
loving herself and loving another, right? A theme, but it wasn't her whole life. We didn't know, we didn't go into her childhood. We didn't, none of that. We were inside of this. So there's also that focus, and we'll be doing more of that on the beat sheet where you're going to decide what this beginning and ending is so that you understand what theme you're carrying along.
Yeah.
To understand it does not have to be cradle to present moment by any means.
Yeah. And I will say on Kelly's side of things, with the memoir and the true story and all that stuff, the ground is laid out before you, and everything's cohesive already on its own because it is a life, that has been lived. So there's not as much, you don't necessarily need to decide ahead of time, I guess is what I'm saying. However, in fiction where you're inventing everything, you're inventing all the backstories, you're inventing the world, even if you're using loosely the truth, you do have to think a little bit ahead of time just so you don't back yourself into a corner. And so it's like, like with Bridgerton, I'll give an example because that's a well-known novel and a series. Y- you know, she clearly knew ahead of time that she was going to do, it's eight siblings and each book was going to be the love story of one of them. So it was going to focus entirely on another one. So each book really can stand on its own, which is awesome. But at the same time, there was a need for some continuity between all of them, that had to be established right in the first book. And that's why I say there's a little extra work that, in my opinion, I will say, I think you need to do that work anyway. I think all characters should be, but even in the first book, she had to do likely a very deep dive into the relationships and the personalities and the everything of each of those siblings, even though that first book, or if you're a TV writer, that first episode, that pilot episode, is not going to give away all of that stuff at all. You're not going to get credit for all that work you just did, except that you will.
Yeah,
You
it'll
don't.
pay off in the long run because it'll manifest then through plot and character development later on. Yeah.
Yeah, and with series sometimes, like especially in TV, you have to, one of the things I had to do then to be prepared, you couldn't pitch a TV show unless you did already know where it's going, at
Oh
least for
yeah,
the
you had
entire
to have a
first
Bible.
season.
Yeah.
So you have to do all that work up front. And then you only write that first episode. But the good news is, you laid yourself a breadcrumb trail. You have done a lot of the work, and it makes it starting to be a lot easier as you go, because you have created that whole world. You have created all the characters that inhabit it, with all their depth and richness, and it really pays off if all your characters are not just, if you're not just taking the cheap way and they're all sort of stock characters to help you move the story along, and they really have needs and wants and desires of their own, all those supporting characters as well.
Yeah, and for thinking about the difference between doing smaller one-off stories that have a slight beginning, middle, and end, which is fine because they can be turned into chapters like mine were,
Mm-hmm.
but they become a little more open-ended at the end. The ending becomes a little different. And of course the beginning because you're trailing on from who you were right before that event happened, type of a thing. Um, but what happens is with the smaller ones is as you're writing these stories that you feel are essential to communicate to the world who you are or what's important to you or what happened to you or what you did, that all that stuff that's in a memoir, it really does then help you to understand what is necessary and not necessary. What are the stories that don't need to be in there then, and then which ones do you need? And as you're writing, your unconscious too will start giving you more memories and giving you more things. So even just starting the process of writing about your life, you are offered things that come up even when you're doing one-offs like that because it becomes a like, oh yeah, there's that thing too. Is that a standalone or does that go with those other,
Mm-hmm.
but you start to source your material more, and because it's your life, it, like Holly said, it's going to have a natural cohesion to it.
Mm-hmm.
So more than anything, you're not looking for material. More than likely, you're trying to cut material. You're trying to
Yeah.
really get it so that it is the essential things that need to be shared and lived through on the page or the stage for people to take the ride with you.
Yeah.
As with any character. I mean, that's really what any character development is. Because you do have to see yourself as a character. Because ultimately, even though you're not writing fiction, we talked about this earlier this week, it's a fiction. How we tell our story to ourself about our lives. I mean, hello, all you people in Humans on the Verge. This is what you've been doing, is seeing the fiction of the story you tell yourself. And it's gotten you here so far. And so my memoir was about here's kind of the fiction because of a chaotic childhood I decided the world is, and then I operated accordingly, and how it kept getting me not to where I want to go.
Yeah. Here's how I'm going to dismantle it now.
Right. And that I'm always in the end, because we always are the ego fool who falls for the fiction again.
Mhm.
And that's till the day we die. There's no perfection here. So, but that's the fun of it,
I was
right?
gonna say that's the good news.
And that's the healing too for us, is seeing ourselves as the fool, even if it's the most dramatic thing, in the end, if we're not seeing ourselves the fool, the ego is still in charge.
Yeah. So I think what we're saying then is with memoir and true story, the series is sort of built in. It's just up to you to frame it and decide
Yeah.
if you even want to keep going with it, or if you were good with the one. But with
Well, and I
fiction,
want
you
to
have to
say too,
manufacture the.
if you're a blogger and
Mhm,
you use your personal story to um, have a point of view or teach something or
mhm,
have a kind of a world that you're in, a community you're in, whether you're a healer or a therapist or an artist or a nuclear physicist, whatever it is, uh, you know, that's an important skill to have is, to tell it from your personal point of view, because people learn a lot from that. So
Mhm.
that, you can also use it in that way. You can use your personal anecdotes and your personal story to help illustrate some of the work you're doing in the world.
Yeah, yeah. I know some of you on this call have, because I've talked to some of you, some really unique life experience that not everybody has. And so you can sometimes take for granted too, even just your point of view on that. Can be fascinating to other people if you take a minute to figure out how to
Yeah,
present it.
and that's the fun part.
Um, and yeah, I mean, so I don't have that much more to say about that. I think we could open up to questions, but I do
Yeah,
want to
I agree.
say back to yesterday on format and where we were saying like imagination is the limit on which medium you want. It's really what blows your skirt up kind of thing. I ended up seeing yesterday another medium you could write to if you wanted to, which was did you see what they did with Wizard of Oz in the
I did.
bowl?
I read the whole article about it. It was a big article in the LA Times
There's
about
that bowl at Vegas that a lot
the
of people were
sphere.
making fun of, the sphere when they first built it. They're like, not so great, whatever. But now they're starting to use it for things they can use it for. And apparently they used it to they redid the Wizard of Oz, but I mean, they make you feel like you're in the tornado. Like,
It's an immersive experience, part
the
AI,
fun.
part film, part physical, part yeah. So yeah, I mean, immersive narrative is coming. It already is here with games and stuff like that. I mean, gaming is a bigger industry than the entertainment
It
industry.
is. Oh, and I have one of my students she wrote a one woman show uh also, but what she did was she wrote a whole narrative that was out of her imagination, that she was like a writer on stage talking to her imagination. So she actually shot the film
Wow.
and she was talking to
Very cool.
the film. So she only needed herself for the one woman show, but she's interacting with a film, basically. And
Very clever.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. So there's, yeah,
There's also literally
yeah,
our imaginations are limitless. So yeah. And
again,
one thing I just wanted to say for the few new people that are here, to just talk about something called the daily practice we have,
oh yeah.
which comes with our community, and is a part of it, which is Holly opens a Zoom room Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific, where you go to do either your writing and or your journaling or any other kind of me time, maybe a spiritual practice or something you do, the thing that helps you plant yourself in
Mm,
your most resource self or get your creative work done for the day or your self-examination done for the day. And I just wanted to say that it is, as a writer, to be able to say to myself by 9 a.m. I have written today
mhm. Is
is everything, because
mhm,
I've done the thing that kind of my soul work, like the most important work I feel I'm here to do in my lifetime, which is to express through that medium. I'm taking care of that.
it
And I'm
changes
taking
the
care of
whole
that
day.
in community. And we're all like off camera and off all that and off audio and everything. But Holly comes at the beginning, she pulls a card and we kind of ground. And then she comes at the end with her friendly face and says, "Hi, how would everyone do?" We kind of chit chat a little bit and then we're gone. But there is something about that opportunity. Uh, it's an anchoring that
Mm,
happens, and that's what community is about. For us, those of us in Humans on the Verge, it's an anchoring. It's a place we can touch stone, whether it's once a day or once a week, whatever your rhythm is with it. Um, but it is so essential. So I just wanted to mention that little amazing little thing that seems like a nothing in the background, but it really is the foundation. It's like the cornerstone of the cathedral is those daily practice sessions.